The Munitorum Field Manual is out, and it's rather different to how Munitorum Field Manuals have been done before, which we're going to get into. This video is looking at the points of the Adepta Sororitas. There will be separate videos for the Genestealer Cult and the Death Watch and the Imperial Agents. General thoughts on the new style of doing things, where it's a website and you go to the website and you can see the most up-to-date points. It's not a PDF. This is not easy to read compared to a PDF, and because it's going to be live updated and constantly updated, it probably won't have the color codes that we've had in the PDFs of before to show changes, as this is a digital datasheet. No red text with up by 15 points. You'll find that your army list in the app is a different points number, you've gone over your points cap, and you won't know why. That is an irritation. Especially after Games Workshop spent so long not fixing it, then eventually fixing it, and now it's broken again. Not having PDFs means it's harder to preserve and compare to previous versions, and you can't download it to take it with you. You need to have access to the internet to see it, or you've got to have your app working. We'll see the app in a minute. The way points values are done is you don't just have a points value for the unit. Some weapons have additional points. Sometimes if you take multiple of the same unit, it costs additional points. We're calling this stepped point values. I think it's fine if the third unit you take costs additional points, then it really doesn't matter for 1000 points. But if there's a unit that costs more points the more time you take it, and there is a dedicated detachment focused on that one unit, you're punished for playing the detachment to its strengths. That's not ideal, but generally, oh yeah, here's a thing that gets thrown out a lot because it's a really good datasheet. It doesn't matter what detachment you are playing, it's a good datasheet, people take them regardless. I'm sick of seeing Rogel Dawn tank commanders. I'm glad it costs more for the second and third one. I don't think Games Workshop's gone overboard on points per weapon. They've been rather restrained, perhaps I think too restrained, on the times where they've said, oh, if you're adding these certain weapons, then it costs additional points. There are definitely times when I think, this weapon is clearly better than any other kind of weapon. It changes how the unit works. Why is it not a different points value to the other weapons the unit can take? So they could have done more. We don't need to go back to like 4th edition where frag grenades cost 1 point and crack grenades cost 2 points. I have Conflict 47 if I want to get into that level of detail. The Legends unit's points have been copied and pasted. I can't see any that have changed so far. Whatever the points were in 10th edition, that's probably what the points are going to be in 11th edition. There are no Legends units in the app. They will only start putting Legends units in the app when the Faction Codex comes out. So when the Space Marine Codex comes out at the end of September, they will have their Legends units added to the app. Other factions will not. So there isn't a button on the app to show Legends, but if you're looking at the Field Manual website, use that Show Legends button on the right to see the full roster of units that are available to you. But as a good thing, the characters show that they can attach to Legends units. There's just a little asterisk next to them if it's a Legends unit. Because Legends are not on the app when you're building them, if you're trying to build your army with Legends units, you will mostly use the app, and then you'll have to add on like a paper section where you say, oh yes, and then I add my Legends unit and it costs this many points. And that's how I get to my full, whatever the points value you're playing is. Other than not really showing in the app, I have no idea how Legends are different to any other kind of unit, besides not currently being sold by Games Workshop. They are marked as match play in their faction pack. There's no mention of them being excluded in the tournament packs. So I don't know why there's a difference in Legends made necessary. We haven't got the full army construction rules as a PDF. They're on the app. But again, no mention of Legends. There is a concern I have that I've not heard from anyone else. All of the faction packs are out. There is no non-aligned faction pack. We don't have any points to add allies for units that are non-aligned, like Spindle Drones, like the Zote, like Fortifications. These do not have points, these do not have rules in 11th edition. This is concerning for me. Is it an oops big oversight on Games Workshop's part? Or are they intentionally deleting your ability to take certain units? If they are, and it's not possible to buy the unit, and there are no rules for the unit, that gives anyone 3D printing a copy of them a stronger legal challenge, if required. Maybe. I don't do law stuff. But part of the reason that Games Workshop introduced Legends at the start of 8th edition was to say, hey, we don't make these units anymore, but they're still our units, and we still make points for them, so you can't have them. Other people can't make models of them. So that's a concern. And we haven't had anything on Warhammer Community about Legends. At the start of 10th edition, there were several articles saying these units are fine, you can still keep playing them, don't worry about it. They're only excluded at certain events. We have heard nothing about Legends from Games Workshop. Okay, when you're on the app and you're attaching characters to a unit, it's something you have to do by like pressing the 3 buttons and saying attach to unit, and then it will throw up errors once you attach characters and support characters to a unit if there is more than one enhancement. It seems like you can attach an epic hero to a unit that has an enhancement, or attach them to a unit where there's another character that has an enhancement, and they're attached to the unit. That doesn't throw up an error. We're trying to piece together the rules on enhancements and heroes. Unfortunately, so far we only have the app to tell us this. There's no army construction rules that have been released on Warhammer Community's download page, so we're piecing them together. Support units have to be attached. We were told this on Warhammer Community, but the Games Workshop website is not a reliable source of information for 40k rules. Unfortunately, as different versions of army construction have also been shown off. The army construction rules that we've been shown in Warhammer Community make no mention of dedicated transports, or that you can only have one of each epic hero. The app rules mention these. We've had an article say, something maybe only in doubles, you can use any one detachment, regardless of detachment points, at 1000 point games. That may be coming in a future patch. It may be a future patch only to the doubles event pack. We don't know. Games Workshop communication is terrible. Speaking of, no mention of what size of game the in-between points are, like 1250 points. Is that Incursion or Strike Force? We need real confirmation of that, rather than a Q&A where they said Strike Force and then went on to describe Incursion in specific detail. If there's some FAQ or errata that I have missed, please let me know in the comments. An interesting aspect, don't know if it's intentional, is that points per unit is different for some Space Marine chapters. Like a unit may cost more if taken by generic Space Marines, who have their +1 to wound version of Oath of Moment. All of the Divergent chapters get it slightly cheaper. There are also different costs on the detachments for the number of detachment points depending on which chapter you are. The Black Templars have the Bastion Task Force down at 3 detachment points. It is a very good detachment for them, so that may not be an error, but it's 2 detachment points for everyone else, including Deathwatch. So it may be an error. The app seems fine. It has the rules for the 26-27 mission deck, so you don't necessarily need to buy the mission deck. It has a tabletop battles aspect, but the tabletop battle thing has some flaws. I tried it out and tried to discard one of my opponent's hypothetical cards because they got Defend Stronghold on the first turn. It then came up with which one of my cards I want to discard. Then I tried to discard one of my own cards and it came up with a list of my opponent's cards. That's an error that will make it harder to play on this app. Sometimes the app crashes when you try and open a certain unit or when you try and start the war journal to see a tabletop battle in action. That sort of thing should hopefully be sorted out in time. This is an update to the app, so it may be a bit clunky. I really wish it was a new app. Then anyone who doesn't have Warhammer Plus could make loads of armies, as we could at the start of 10th edition, as we could when the Age of Sigmar app first came out. Instead, without Warhammer Plus, you can only make 1 army. I was going to recommend making 100 army lists, just to have something for every faction. But well, the app is fine and workable. It needs updating, it needs improving, it needs to have legends in. It's something we can see the good aspects of, see the many bad aspects of, and cope. And really, that is the theme for the sisters as well. We'll start with the detachments. All of the enhancements for all of the existing detachments are the same points cost as they were before. We have our tags, and Champions of Faith is Reverend, so the Sacred Champions, which is also Reverend, cannot be combined with them. This is entirely predictable. No super Sacresants. And Sacresants, we'll get to Sacresants in time. The Sacred Champion enhancements, I'm not keen on. I am not paying 10 points for +1 movement on a unit, unless it is to get to the full points value of the army list that I'm playing. Like if I have 1,990 points and I have a spare enhancement slot, yeah, let's go. Let's have +1 movement on a unit. The Writ of Compunction for 20 points to give +1 objective control to a Sacresant unit is too expensive, especially once you see the cost of Sacresants. Next detachment, Sanctified Orators, and there's only one enhancement. That is the entire detachment, really. The Hag enhancement is 25 points. That seems okay, but the number of times you'll be applying it, because it can be applied to up to 3 characters, and it only counts as one of your enhancements if you do that. In fact, in this detachment, it counts as none of your enhancements. That's a points cost that will add up very quickly. But if you want that Purge the Foe disposition, and you do on the Penitent host, you'll take the Sanctified Orators detachment, and maybe you will use the enhancement a couple of times. The Chorus of Condemnation's 2 enhancements are pretty good. You have Leave and Return on a Jump Cannoness, leave the board at the end of the enemy fight phase, come back in your turn or whenever you want, 15 points. That's a good upgrade. Otherwise, if I combine this with the Army of Faith, there is a stratagem to leave the board at the end of the enemy fight phase and come back, and I could do that for free with the Cannoness's ability. I may want to use one of the other stratagems and make that free with the Cannoness, especially when I may have a regular Cannoness on the table, who would love to have +1 AP or Lance, and then we get a Miracle Dice if we destroy any enemy models. So 15 points for the ability to leave and return. Great. I'll work that in. You upgrade an Exorcist and you can re-roll the number of attacks it gets on its super amazing missile launcher. That's a very acceptable enhancement. I'm happy with that. I'll take that. Because getting to re-roll a 2 into more shots and then being able to convert those more shots into more damage on the enemy will get our 10 points back very quickly. Right, looking at the units. The Mortifiers compared to the Penitent engines. One Mortifier costs the same as before. The unit of 2 is a little bit cheaper. The reason I'm thinking is because you can only take 1 Sarcophagus for the 3+ save. So you're generally better off having 2 units of 1. The Penitent engines are a little cheaper than before and are the same cost as the Mortifiers, except a unit of 2 is 140 points instead of 130 points. Unless I'm in the Penitent host where there will be a mix, I'll stick to Mortifiers as the better option. Seraphim versus Zephyrim? Well, Seraphim are more expensive for the 3rd unit that you pick. Zephyrim are the same points cost for any number of units. A unit of 5 Seraphim costs more than 5 Zephyrim, so for a unit that's going to basically drop in and do some actions, use Zephyrim. Especially when you consider the 2 abilities. The Seraphim could drop in and shoot and then move, except they can't do that in 11th edition. You cannot make any kind of move until the charge phase, so you can't drop in near an objective, shoot the enemy, then move on to the objective. Whereas the Zephyrim get to reroll charge rolls. That's what their banner does. That's really good. If you need to get onto a place to finish off an enemy unit, or get onto an objective to stop the enemy controlling the objective, Zephyrim can do that. Probably, as long as they survive. Sisters versus Dominions. Well, 10 Battle Sisters are 100 points instead of 105 points, and all of their war gear is free. Have a melter gun, have a multi-melter, no additional points cost. The Dominions are 100 points instead of 120. A 3rd unit costs 10 points more for 110, but now melter guns cost 5 points. You can have 4 melter guns, so a unit of 10 with 4 melter guns is 120 points, the same as before. If you had them with Astrid and Agatha and used Storm Bolters, it's only 100 points, and that's a lot of shots that get devastating wounds. Dominions may be better than basic Sisters because of their reactive move, because you can have, though it'll definitely cost you, you can have 1 extra melter shot. Does that mean it's only worth having Dominions if you're taking 4 melters? Otherwise, for 3 melter shots, 2 from a multi-melter, 1 from a melter gun, you're better off having basic Sisters? And basic Sisters have more objective control? Or for Dominions, reactive move and 4 flamers is not bad. It's a ponderance as to which is better. Please give your thoughts in the comments. The Retributor Point is another basic sister unit. Their points have been all over throughout 10th edition. 105 points, 120 points, 115 points, 110 points. We got about all of them. The Retributors are down to 105 points, but it's 5 points for each multi-melter, so a full set of them costs 125 points. They have gone up in cost, again. But you want to take the multi-melter. I know it's tempting to have 4 heavy bolters and have them on top of a building and then you've got plunging fire, but they die too quickly even if they're hitting on a 2+ with their heavy bolters. Normally hitting on a 4+, +1 to hit from heavy, +1 ballistic scale from plunging fire. But you take the multi-melters. Arrive from reserves more than 8 inches away from the enemy, and that unit is now within your 9-inch melter range, so you'll get the extra damage. You should be able to cause more than 125 points of damage with your kills. Especially if it's a unit that has destroyed one of your units already in the game, as something big and nasty like a Demon Prince may have done. We have a lot of units at the same points cost, but the Hospitaller is high up, as expected. 75 points from 60 points. I did see it coming, and they are so good. A 5+ Feel No Pain and Resurrection that now continues even if all of the bodyguard is killed, you can keep bringing them back. And as far as I can see, you can add the Hospitaller and Junith to the same unit of Sacresants. Unlike in 10th edition, we are not locked into only doubling up characters in Battle Sister squads. In 11th edition, any unit can have 2 characters, as long as one is a leader and one is support. And the 2 characters each have that bodyguard unit as an option for them to join. 75 points is pushing it. 85 points for your 2nd and 3rd Hospitaller is saying, hey, you know how there's this tactic of having a Hospitaller and a unit of Sacresants? We don't want you to do that anymore. Stop doing that. And with this number of points, yeah, maybe in Hallowed Martyrs, 1 unit of Sacresants with a Hospitaller, and that'll do. No 2nd unit of Sacresants, no 2nd Hospitaller. And at 1,000 points, I do still recommend 1 Hospitaller to keep any of your units alive. It is much harder for the enemy to wipe out a unit entirely, including characters now, so it's easier to return models to the unit, so you've got a unit that keeps coming back, and the enemy just wastes attacks against them. 2nd squad though, ooh, that's gonna be too pricey, I think, for many people, unless it's your whole jam, by which I mean you're playing Sacred Champions, or Champions of Faith. An Imagifier is finally fewer points than the Hospitaller. They've been like neck and neck the whole time since the Sisters Codex came out in 10th edition, and that is not correct. The Imagifier is not as good as the Hospitaller. Well, now, they're finally fewer points, but only because the Hospitaller went up in points. Okay. Junith Eruita is up heavily in points. 115 points instead of 80 points. -1 to hit the unit is very good. That stacks with the benefit of cover, which is -1 to the enemy ballistic skill. They generate command points. Yeah, it's pretty good, but they're rather squishy. Unfortunately so. Otherwise, pretty great. And now you can have them and a Hospitaller in a unit of Sacresants. It's gonna be very, very expensive though. The Exorcist compared to the Castigator. The Exorcist points are lower. 180 points instead of 210 points for your first Exorcist. The second one is 220 points. More than the 210 points of before, with indirect fire being worse. That is ridiculous. Or you could think of it as, well, if I have 2, then each one costs essentially 200 points, which is only a mild reduction in points cost, and then we add in rerolls to the number of attacks, and yeah, it's exactly the same number of points as last edition. A little bit better, a little bit worse. Why are the Conflagration rockets not cheaper? They are so much worse than the Exorcist missile launcher if we have different weapons that fundamentally change how the unit works. Why are the rockets not a different points cost to the missiles? That seems such an oversight. Never take the rockets. Because of this point cost, I'll still keep taking 2 Exorcists in my Army of Faith / Chorus of Condemnation, but I think I'll take 1 in any army, but that needs a little bit of work. The Castigator, meanwhile, is 165 points, up from 160, and the third one costs 175 points. So 15 points cheaper for your first Castigator compared to your first Exorcist. Castigators are very strong. The Castigator battle cannon ignores cover, so you can ignore that -1 ballistic skill when firing your big cannon. So while I'll be taking at least one Exorcist because I love the Exorcist and I can make the Exorcist work rather well, for the general sister player, you'll want a Castigator or two before you get an Exorcist. Or two. Definitely before or two. Because that second Exorcist costs more points, the second Castigator does not cost more points. For our transports, we have a much clearer winner. The Rhino is cheap, 75 points. The Immolator is 110 points, down from 115 points. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Immolator cost 120 points instead of 110. So when that army list builder rules were shown off with no mention of dedicated transports up to 6, that was incorrect. Another incorrect thing that Games Workshop has shown off. Also, having a twin multi-melter costs a big plus 15 points. So your cheaper 110 point Immolator is actually 125 points. I don't dislike the auto-hitting flamers. That ignores the benefit of cover. Leave melter shooting to the other units. You can get melter guns and multi-melters cheaper. And on the Paragon Warsuits with Morvenn Vahl, you have your twin-linked essentially multi-melters as you can reroll the wound roll as long as you're with her. I wouldn't pay an extra 15 points for the multi-melter now. The main benefit of the Immolator is you can split one unit into 2 units. And then you have more units to stay on your home objective with the Simulacrum and generate more miracle dice. They stop enemies from deep striking within 8 inches of you, so you can keep your home objective safe from just I land, I get victory points. And you also get a second unit in the Immolator that can go and shoot stuff. The Repressor is the same 130 points for a nice flamer box, and is only 5 points more than an Immolator with a multi-melter. A good way of transporting, say, 10 Dominions or 10 Battle Sisters into battle. But the Rhino is so much cheaper for 75 points. I'm still gonna stick mainly with Rhinos. Occasionally an Immolator, but mainly Rhinos. The Repressor and all other Legends units had their points values copied and pasted. No changes. Astrid and Agatha is up 10 points, the Triumph of St. Catherine is up 10 points, but there's confirmation that they can join Crusaders. Some people were a little bit about that, but Crusaders can be led by any character that can lead Battle Sisters. The Triumph can lead Battle Sisters, the Triumph can lead Crusaders. Crusaders are a great bodyguard for the Triumph because it's some very cheap additional invulnerable saves that the enemy's las cannons will have to get through before they can hurt the Triumph. And as we have fast rolling, it's important to mitigate the failed saves first. Arco-Flagellant is the same for the unit of 10, but a unit of 3 is up by 10 points. 16 points per model, instead of otherwise 14 points per model. Games Workshop may be trying to reduce the number of units that are incredibly small, like support characters, but aren't, because support characters cannot go alone. The app tells you to add them to the unit. The app has a section where it explains that support characters need to go with units. So 3 Arco-Flagellants being up in cost to reduce the number of really small units you can have? If that really was the plan, then they probably should have updated the Crusaders and the Assassins. Instead of 3 Arco-Flagellants, consider 2 Crusaders. Consider 2 Death Cult Assassins. They can infiltrate and have lone operative. Those are now your better choice than 3 Arco-Flagellants. Unless you're in the Penitent host, then you can die on an objective and keep it under your control. Okay, Sacresants. Sacresants are up by 1 point per model. 75 points for 5, 150 points for 10. But your second and third unit is 90 points for 5 and 165 points for a unit of 10. There is a detachment all about Sacresants. You are punished for using that detachment to its fullest. More points the more units you take of them, but it's gonna cost so many points to have 3 units of Sacresants. Here's the detachment that says use lots of them. Here's the points value that says don't use lots of them. Plus the cost of a Hospitaller. Yeah. That noise means don't take Sacred Champions. Unless you really wanted to combine Sanctified Orators and Sacred Champions and have better leadership, higher objective control, and also really expensive Sacresants. But maybe 1 unit of them? But beyond 1 unit of them, it's getting very pricey. More than 16 points per model for not a Space Marine. For a 1 wound toughness 3, 3+ save model. No. I think I'm fine with other kinds of Celestian. Celestian Insidiants. Yeah, I'm good with them. They're unchanged, still 120 points for 10. That's 45 points cheaper than 10 Sacresants, if it's your second unit of 10 Sacresants. Oh, don't like that. Most other units are the same points as before. The Demonifuge is the same points as before, despite the weakness of Fight First. The Dogmata is the same points, despite general Dogmata-ness. They could have come down in points. Intransia Frey is the same points as before, almost like her 10th edition points were planned for 11th edition, not what she was capable of in 10th edition. But with the Battle Shock aura, for example. That's very useful in 11th edition, not so much in 10th edition. Morvenn Vahl is the same points, but will benefit from her own rerolls now even when the 3 Paragon Warsuits are destroyed. As long as she started the game leading a unit, she gets the "you are leading a unit until she is destroyed," even though the bodyguard is destroyed, because we no longer split on death. Which is also a separate problem for the sisters, because it means you only get 1 miracle dice when the Warsuits and Vahl are destroyed, rather than 1 for the Warsuits and another miracle dice for Vahl. The Warsuits are 30 points cheaper, but also not, because it's 10 points per model per multi-melter, which I do encourage you to take. Heavy bolters can be surprisingly good with that +1 to hit and wound against vehicles, and Val's full rerolls to wound, though that low armor penetration will let them down. But you have a tank hunter rule on the Warsuits, so use a tank killing weapon. +1 to hit and wound, okay, that's what you want. So they're basically the same cost, unless you were doing a Holy Trinity thing of having a heavy flamer and a heavy bolter and a multi-melter. Well, you saved yourself 20 points. Good for you. Flavor works. Palatine's plasma pistol doesn't cost any more. Still using a bolt pistol though. Doesn't make a difference. Oh, but what if it might? No, it doesn't. The 3rd Paragon Warsuit unit cost 10 additional points. I don't know why. People took 1 unit for Morvenn Vahl and no more. Or in the Champions of Faith, I would stretch to a 2nd unit, but that was it. I don't think there's anyone using 9 Paragon Warsuits. Maybe you were. That costs a whole 10 extra points now. In general, I'm not seeing much in the way of points down. Some points the same, mostly points up. Not a great start to the edition for the sisters. Tau points seem to be mostly down, demon points are mostly down. The Custodes points are down, except on the sisters within the Custodes. Their points are up. Someone doesn't like their sister. The Adepta Sororitas have a small number of detachments compared to every other faction that isn't Imperial agents, and we've had a points increase. It's not too bad. I reckon we can cope with these points. Games Workshop just recognizes that your average sister player is naturally superior to all others and needs that nerf. We are certainly playable at the start of the edition. There's going to be a points update and maybe a rules update at the end of July, and then another one at the end of August, and another one at the end of September. Between all that, maybe it will shake out some of the problems with the sisters. Maybe it will take the first month's tournament win rate to determine this, assuming people are now playing 11th edition tournaments. There are still some 10th edition tournaments yet to be played. So I'm mostly reserving judgment for now until 11th edition is in a workable state. Then we'll really know how sisters are doing at the start of the edition. I'll be back soon with another points breakdown for the Genestealer cult. Have a great day of 40k.